Call of Duty is adding the most controversial and chaotic set of items I think I've seen to Warzone as part of Season 2 Reloaded, and I wanted to talk about it today. Coming in Season 2 Reloaded is a new kill streak called the Bunker Buster Bomb. And this is a missile that sends an explosive blast through multiple floors of a building and also leaves a column of gas behind the explosion. Although we don't know the cost of this kill streak, and also we don't know how easy it will be to obtain, this is going to radically change how Warzone plays, not only in terms of final circles, but also for more compact maps like Fortune's Keep and Vondel. Teams who deliberately stow bunker buster bombs for the final circles of the game will now be able to force players who have correctly played positioning and taken up power positions in final circles out of those buildings, not only for the original blast, but also keeping them out of the building for the column of gas that lies in its wake. Now, I would personally be astonished if this was allowed in ranked, and I don't expect to see this in any kind of Warzone ranked mode, but this is going to be a huge chaotic influence on how Warzone plays. Those final circles are going to be the most collective positional chaos you've seen in any BR, because teams are going to be scrambling with smoke grenades, running out into the open, and evacuating entire power positions because of a single streak. And the likelihood is that you're going to be seeing a huge number of these in final circles and final circle scenarios because players will naturally realize that they are beneficial in those final stages of the game. For those of you who play Resurgence like Fortune's Keep and Vondel, there are multiple times in those game modes where the final few circles in those games, or even some of the earlier circles, have a high occupation of players within a certain set of buildings, and something like a bunker buster bomb would introduce a huge level of carnage into some of those gameplay scenarios in those buildings. I've had entire finishes to games on Call of Duty Warzone in Vondel or in Fortune's Keep, where in Fortune's Keep, the circle finishes on the keep itself or on the winery. And if that main building was uninhabitable from gas and also had an initial explosion impact on it, you would be seeing chaos at a level I don't think you'd ever seen before. So this is both exciting, controversial, and also somewhat worrying as well as somebody who likes a bit of balance in their BR games. But it doesn't stop there, because they're also introducing the portable contamination station, which many of you have seen in previous versions of Warzone. A small sphere orb which will allow you to stay in the gas for a slightly more prolonged experience, although it will reveal your position on the map. So between bunker buster bombs and portable decontamination stations, we are going to see a very large shift in how final circle metas end up playing and how the end game for pretty much all of Warzone is going to play out. And that is very much the news for Season 2 Reloaded. But it did make me think, and it did make me wonder, what kill streaks in the Call of Duty franchise have we not seen that would actually be interesting to see in something like Warzone, or generally interesting in the game? Kill streaks, I find, can be quite overwhelming in Call of Duty, especially currently in Fortune's Keep. It seems like they are a spammy level of inconvenience that make the game less enjoyable. But in Big Map BR, they are a strategic item that can have a huge influence on the game. And there are lots of kill streaks in Call of Duty's previously gone, where they introduce some interesting dynamics to the game that could be really cool to see in Warzone. And let me give you a first example. In Call of Duty World War II, we have the introduction of the firebombing run, which was a manually placed bombing run that left behind an incendiary. This would be a really interesting addition to Warzone, because although it wouldn't damage people in buildings, it would effectively allow you to cut off certain pathways and certain rotations, or force teams to go into certain directions. One of the best ways at winning final circles is to force teams to play against one another and have them pick each other off. And if you could use a firebombing run to knock out a certain running line or a certain rotation, or take that away from a team, it would be really cool to see how that could influence gameplay and change how the Warzone dynamic works. The next big kill streak for me that we haven't seen in Warzone but I think would be really cool to see is the EMP. The EMP in the original Modern Warfare 2 disabled the HUD, the minimap, took out your electronics like your red dot sights, and generally made the game a little bit of a pain. And there is an EMP already in the game as a tactical device, but an actual EMP kill streak could be really cool. Not only would it stop players from calling in their own kill streaks, it would also do things like take out red dot sights, thermal sights, and other pieces of equipment like heartbeat sensors that are entirely reliant on electronics. This would really add a bit of spice, I think, to Final Circle gameplay, but also general game gameplay. And whilst I don't think an EMP should be entirely effective across the entire map, it would be really cool if it took up a large area of the map. If an EMP, for example, could take out 1/6 or 1/8 of a map and make that entire gameplay region locked down in terms of electronics for a certain period of time. Another classic some of you may remember are Valkyrie rockets, and Valkyrie rockets were effectively a way to take out enemy opponents but also primarily vehicles as a killstreak that deployed into the game in Call of Duty Black Ops. This would be a very interesting addition to Warzone as a streak for the ability to call in some kind of rocket launcher, because it would add a dynamic to the game where people have anti-vehicle measures. Primarily in Warzone right now, anti-vehicle measures aren't really a thing. You either shoot out the person who's sitting in it, and that's your final choice. You can't really destroy a vehicle with a rocket launcher because nobody uses them, and they're very rare to find on the map. So if you had a pole position that you were quite happy with, whether that's a rooftop or a fortified building, the ability to have a rocket launcher available on standby if you're pushed by a vehicle would be a cool option. Now, I'm not expecting these things to one-shot vehicles and kill everybody inside, but it would be cool if they had the ability to disable vehicles or at least do a fairly large amount of damage to them to stop them being as effective as they can be. There are a lot of instances still in Warzone where both heavy choppers and LTVs are far too dominant, not only in BR, but also in solos especially. Now, the Juggernaut has already been fairly heavily used in Warzone, but Call of Duty Ghosts actually had a very interesting variant of this called the Recon Juggernaut, which was a Juggernaut that was on the map that had a active UAV. This would offer a very interesting dynamic because this Juggernaut wouldn't necessarily have a very powerful weapon like a minigun, but would still have a fair bit of health. But it would provide its teammates with an active UAV so long as that Juggernaut remains alive, and it would also be marked on the map. So a little bit like a weapons case or a nuke run, you would have an active target on the map that you'd want to challenge. The final streak that I think would be really interesting would be providing something like an AA missile system, something that was visibly marked on the map, but took out things like UAVs, airstrikes, and cluster strikes, and was able to counter anything that came in both killstreak-wise and also potentially vehicle-wise. Now, it's plausible that you could make this so that it only challenges other killstreaks and makes them less available, or that it only challenges certain vehicles. But either way, I think this would be a cool dynamic. If you could guarantee that your building couldn't be airstriked, couldn't be orbital bombed, or couldn't be hit by something crazy, then that would be a cool option that would give a strategic variant of a kill streak to Warzone. These are just a couple of ideas that I had, and I was really interested, I think, mostly in seeing an EMP or a firebomb system inside Warzone. I think those would be very strategic and interesting options in terms of how they would change the dynamic of how Warzone plays. But I'm interested to hear you guys' thoughts and feelings in the comment section below. What do you think would work in Warzone and why? Let me know down there, and I'll chat to you guys there.